Good morning, everybody. What was the instruction? I need to tell you something, one thing, right? What's the one thing I need to tell you? That you don't know. So what don't you know about me? Then I can tell you the thing that you want to know. Right, so my name is Malcolm Phillips. I'm currently serving as the Regional Director for ICF. So the one thing that you don't know about me is that within our region of Europe and Africa, ICF globally has got 60,000 credential holders. That's 60,000 professional coaches. That is 60,000 people that believe in coaching excellence and not just wara-wara. Stephen asked a question earlier. He says, what about these tiki-toki coaches, right? Quick question. And seeing that we've got so many pastors in the house, you know, when you sit somewhere and you get inspired by others, and something that you mentioned, so just come from a biblical perspective, Jesus was walking with his disciples through the fields, and the disciples were hungry, and they saw a fig tree, and they thought that is where we could eat. They went to the fig tree. It looked beautiful, but it had no fruits. And what happened? The fig tree was cursed. Now, in the same thing within our coaching industry, we get some of those on TikTok, on social media, who looks beautiful, but there is no fruit within them. And so what do we do as ICF to help us identify the coaches with the fruits? We educate organizations, we educate the market, we partner with HR associations. Wherever we can get a platform, we will help you to understand how to buy coaching. There's three things that you want to look for in a coach. Number one, has he been trained? And in Uganda, by Joanne, right? Has that coach been trained in all the competencies? Because as Stephen experienced now, motivational speaking is different to mentoring, to coaching. So I cannot come as a mentor and call myself a coach. So I need a training. So when you look for somebody to coach you, even as an individual, you ask them, by the way, where's your certificate of at least 60 hours of coach-specific training? Then you ask them yourself the question, what is their credential? Coach Grace, wonderful job. If I had it in me, I would let you write the ACC exam now and give you your pin right now. Well done. She's exemplified the standards of ICF. As ICF, we strive for coaching excellence. Our purpose for existence is to make sure that we expand coaching excellence throughout the world. That when people experience coaching, they don't just experience an intervention, but they experience a transformation. And that transformation will lead them through to wherever they want to go. Now, we're living in a world at the moment. Oh, just before I get, there's two coaches that's always in my mind, Marshall Goldsmith and Marsha Reynolds. So Marsha Reynolds, she's got a book, and this is something I think Pastor Julius mentioned. We don't coach the problem, but we coach the person. Because the problem cannot be transformed if the person is not transformed. The problem cannot go away if the person doesn't change their way. And so we look at that in terms, so that sticks with me. To Joanne and all the cohorts, this cohort that's graduating today and the ones before. Marshall Goldsmith's statement is, and he's got a book on it, and you can Google it, it's on Amazon. I don't get paid, by the way. There's no royalties for me by saying you can read this book. Right? Is what got you here won't get you there. Why is that important? Your training today has got you to the point where you are now, like Coach Grace. Now we need you to step into the market. Now to get into the market, you need to show credibility to move forward. Part of that credibility would be to attain your ICF credentials. To say that I'm challenging myself even to go further. Now, as ICF, we recognize brilliant coaches, brilliant organizations, and so this is my challenge. So NSSF, the table is still there, so please tell Patrick and Milton what they need to do. We also have for our coach education providers, and we also have for our coaches what we call the Coaching Impact Award annually. Now, unfortunately, I just checked. The applications for 2026 ended on the 26th of April. So this is my challenge to Uganda, to the coach education providers, Joanne, to all the organizations that's represented here, to the coaches that's represented here. So these are the awards that we offer. So the first one is for our coaches, is the Distinguished Coach Award. And these are coach practitioners that have made their mark on the ICF and coaching profession. Sorry. Then we've got the Accomplished Coach. And Grace, please, next year, 2027, the Emerging Coach Award, I would like to see it going somewhere in here from this, right? Coach education providers. Now, I work a lot with coach education providers because they are stakeholders as ICF. There's a difference between a coach education provider and an accredited coach education provider. The one brings coaching, and the other one brings coaching standards. And Joanne, what I've noticed today is that this, Imagine Me, brings the standard of coaching to the level that coaching needs to be. So do not be afraid, if ever you want to have a coach training, to go to the source of where the standards are. Joanne will tell you it's a long process to get accredited with ICF. Like she said, we start you with 5, but there's a lot of things that we need to test to make sure that you can uphold the standard. So the second thing, when you buy coaching, get yourself an ICF coach. Don't just get any coach. Just because they say they are good, doesn't mean they are good. Test them. Okay, then from an education provider, distinguished provider, and the distinguished educator. So the educator that made the biggest impact. And then organization, Stanbic, who's here, NSSF, and others, APSA, up and coming. There's the distinguished organization and the emerging organization. And these are all awards recognizing for the quality of coaching excellence within organizations, training providers, and individuals. I think somebody from that table mentioned about the Boda Bodas, informal sectors. It's what we call social impact. So we also have coaches that focuses on social impact, and we recognize them for the impact that they do. So Coach Stephen, as Sam will hold you accountable to start working in the informal sector, please, let's see if you can come to the Social Impact Award in 2027. I look forward to seeing Uganda blossom greater than what it ever did, because coaching is here. Now my real speech starts, and I think I've got 10 minutes for that now. Okay, and so let me do this. I was going to do a presentation, but I think let's do that. We're living at a moment in history which we call, it's almost like a hinge moment. And when we say a hinge moment, we're talking about a moment where things are hanging like the hinges of the door. The door is hanging on it, but it seems like the door is too heavy for the hinges that it's on. When you picture the earth, the globe, and we know that we're on our axis, but some reason with Trump's policies and what's happening in Russia and what's happening in China and what's happening in the Middle East, we are just hanging in the balance. And so with everything that comes now, we find ourselves in what we call a polycrisis moment. A crisis moment that is not just one crisis at a time, but multiple crises from various points in time. Why am I making this point? Because in a time like this, coaching is the thing and the methodology and the being that brings stability to a world that can go into chaos. Coaching brings us apart to say, step back from that hinge, step back from that, and do some reflection. Do some regulation, emotional regulation. Do a different way of thinking. Stephen he started out in one way. Sorry, Stephen, may I use you as an example? You are the most latest one in my brain, right? So he came up, but he started thinking differently. The question about accountability was, oh, there's my parents, there's my priest, they are this. He started thinking in a systems way, not in an individual way. So coaching brings us to that. Coaching helps us to lead through ambiguity, not just the numbers, but the confusion that exists within this world. It helps us to get clarity from where we are. So when we look at our future in the workplace in Africa, Africa has got the youngest workforce globally. So what does that mean? I remember as a child, not as a child, when I was younger, and for those, there's a reason why I shave cheeskop, so the gray don't show. Right? So I remember when I was young, I was too young. I was too short, I was too tall. Yesterday was the first time I felt too old. I went into one organization, E&M, And I looked at this, I was like, no, I'm very old. So we can see that the workforce generation is changing. So which means that we need to nurture and mold our talent, and our talent is within our young people. The hope of this country, the hope of this world, does not lie with us anymore. It lies with our children. And how we raise them and how we grow them is going to be important. My conversation with my kids, your conversation with your spouse and with your family can change the world. If you change your conversation, you can save a marriage. If you change your conversation, and some people say, okay, but it's executive coaching in this. It is executive coaching, but it doesn't stay with the executive. Coaching has got a ripple effect. When you are opening yourself to being coached, you are actually saying, I want to change my entire life and everything around me. Because I'll give you an example. I had one client, very much to the point, command and control. So I thought, you poor people at work. Do you know that after our coaching program, and we had 10 sessions with him over a 1-year period, he told me, Malcolm, thank you for saving my marriage. I asked him, I didn't deal with you on your marriage. What did we do? The change in conversation, how I regulated myself with my team is what I applied back home. Can we see that we don't coach the problem, we coach the person, so they can show up differently and be able to work differently. In our today's world, youngest workforce, what are we doing about it? Digital acceleration. I don't think, when I'm Generation X, so we introduced the computer. And then we introduced something, and then something happened in the last 5 years. Digital acceleration just boomed. Suddenly, everybody had a laptop. Suddenly, everybody needed access to the internet. Suddenly, we had this thing called AI, ChatGPT, just popped into the world. Do we know how to leverage those? Do we know how to work those? How is that disrupting your flow in your workspace right now? We also have rising expectations. I read an article the other day on LinkedIn where we find that a lot of our Gen Zs are actually being fired and replaced because of the work ethic and the expectations that they have versus what they want to give. So how do we not make sure that we push them into the world but bring them back in? Leadership gaps are widening, and so we need to address those. What employees really want in this day and age? Oh, let me just make one quick side note. All the information that I'm sharing with you is not my opinion. It is research-backed. As ICF, we have about 5 different researches that we do over a 5-year period. One is the consumer coaching, the coaching consumer studies, where we actually ask consumers what do they need, what are they looking for. Then the other one is a global coaching study, which we just did in 2025. And then we also got a workplace coaching study that we do. So all the information, I will share it with Joanne. You can have a look at it and search for it. Okay, coming back. What does employees want? And this is coming from the research. It says growth and development. And I think we all are there, right? We want growth and we want development. More importantly to that is psychological safety. Am I able to feel free to be who I am, say what I want like to say, make the contributions without fear that I will be judged for what I'm saying? We want leaders that listen and not just command us. We want meaningful work and not just, okay, you can do that. I delegate to you, but I hold on to my delegation. How many of us are doing that? Supportive culture. How do we support our employees as they go through? Now, these are some critical pain points that organizations are facing. Complexity, change, burnout, talent retention, which is the big one, skills gaps, and then also cultural transformation. Coaching addresses each one of those items if you allow it to work properly within your organization. From complexity, coaching gets us clarity from the ambiguity. From change, it helps us to navigate change and transition and transformation in a different way that we used to. The organization that I used to work for in corporate, within a space of 7 years, we went through 8 restructures. The organization went from a staff complement of 80 to 2,000 to 1,000 to 2,000 to 45. Now, I can tell you, change was not done properly. You kind of get into, now we all feared October team meetings, company meetings. If it's team meetings, all right. The company meeting, October, second week, we know there's something coming. The first one, what they did was just put on the screen to say, these are the changes that we are making. No conversations, nothing. The last one, I think, was the best one that we did. Was it still bad? It was still bad. We actually reduced quite significantly. But the difference that we had conversations with people. We turned hopelessness into opportunity. Where somebody said, I'm being retrenched, there's no job for me. We helped them to realize that through coaching, you have what is called transferable skills. Just because you're an accountant doesn't mean you have to be an accountant again. But you got the financial skills, you got the analytical skills, and so what are the opportunities? And we help them to see opportunities where otherwise it was a problem. Burnout, we all know about that. Coaching helps us. Work-life balance, how do I structure these things? And also deals with the skills gap that we find ourselves in. So when we look at why coaching matters, coaching cultures in organizations is stronger, helps us with stronger leadership pipelines, helps us with higher engagement, and that's what we want for our team. There's a concept that I've got, and just linking to the question at the back is, they're already running at 120 kilometers per hour. How do I put pause on that? For a leader to see how great the leadership is, two things you want to notice is how many people are following you, not how many people are you dragging with you. If they are willingly following you, you are leading. Second thing, the impact of your leadership. Is your team willing to give you what I call discretionary effort that you don't ask for? So Malcolm is the accountant, but somehow Malcolm feels the need to help the team and bring his one creative idea for the marketing team. Somehow Malcolm is willing to, and this is nothing about just working overtime and that's just doing more work. I'm talking about when they bring in and they show up in a way that you would not expect them to show up. Better team functioning because we talk to each other, we listen to each other, we engage with each other. Improved retention. There are studies that shows that the retention of employees increases by at least 20% once you start on a coaching journey, coaching culture. Faster adoption of the country, I almost said of the country, but for the countries as well. Organizations, picture 2019, everything was fine. We knew where we were going. March 2020, it was, where are we going? We were all asking the question. We had to adapt very quickly. During that time, I was doing coaching with the Western Cape, in Cape Town, the Western Cape Department of Health. Now you can picture every hospital in the Western Cape, how they had to pivot, how they needed to change. The engineering team, the doctors, the nurses, all had to shift immediately. Suddenly you needed a COVID wing, suddenly you needed that. Through coaching, the adaptation and the ability to adapt helped them to survive, with Grootersgeer being one of the ones that has adapted the best. So to build, these are six elements that I would like to share with the organizations that's here today in building strong coaching cultures. One, employees value coaching. If employees value coaching, you're starting on a great path to that. Two, senior leaders value coaching. Culture is coming from the top down. Do we create the environment for coaching and for a coaching culture? Thirdly, leaders are trained in coaching skills, workplace coaching. Fourth, we use three modalities in our coaching culture: one-on-one coaching, team coaching, and then group coaching as well. And each one of them are different, and Coach Grace will explain each one of them to you very kindly. Sorry, Grace, you are my favorite today. Right. Now, nothing happens without investment. So the return on investment and the return on impact is also linked to the return on expectation. So you need to have a dedicated coaching investment, and there needs to be equity in accessibility to coaching. When coaching started, it was for the senior executives, not even the senior leaders. It was you had to be in C-suite. Today, we got coaching transferring through everywhere. Equal opportunity for coaching, and it will make a big difference to us. Now, as we get to the end, I want to share just a glimpse of a few organizations, and Patrick has shared what they've done and the impact. And I think that for me it's not just about what you do, it's about what the impact is. But these are some of the global organizations. How many of us know SAP? SAP, or some call it SAP, the technology company, right? They've got 600 internal coaches. The coaching access is for 100,000 employees. The team coaching is embedded, and they've got a high ROI and cost savings. By introducing coaching into SAP and the culture of coaching, SAP's efficiency increased. They moved to be able to actually get a higher return on the investment, so their bottom lines increased as well. So am I afraid to invest in the very expensive coaching? Yes, I am. But if I do not, what's the cost that I'm paying in any case? What you say yes for, in the one sense, you're actually saying no to something else. So if I say no to investment in coaching, I'm saying yes to not the performance that I want. Intel, another tech giant, the impact of their coaching culture was higher promotion rates, achievement of business goals, stronger leadership skills, and world-class engagement scores. AstraZeneca, I think everybody knows AstraZeneca by now. Vaccine, right? They had significant cost savings. I'm not sure if it's a vaccine, but they had significant cost savings. 34% promotion rates. This is what happened. Improved leadership capability and 100% increase in coaching behaviors within the organization. Now, when we talk about coaching behaviors, we're not talking about the coaches. We are talking about the people in the organization. And then MD Anderson, which is Center for Cancer, what happened to them, they had a 52% reduction in new leader turnover. The longer you keep your leaders and your staff, the less money you spend on actually recruitment and training and retraining. 41% increase in promotions and 48% reduction in turnover for coach leaders. What do they tell us? Coaching works in organizations for individuals. It helps leadership. It helps culture transform. It improves performance within an organization. It helps us with retention and retaining the talent that we want to retain and actually help them to move. Coaching helps an organization to be agile and to be ready for whatever life throws at us at the next level. Opportunities for Uganda. And this is a beautiful picture that I've got. I'm so sorry that I don't share with you. But the coaching for Uganda, opportunities for Uganda is one. Uganda, you've got a very young workforce. And I'm challenging you today, don't just take care of them, but grow them. Number two, we've got a growing corporate sector. Everybody in that growing corporate sector needs to know about coaching so that life can be different, not just for them working there, but for their families as well. We've got a rising leadership demand. So what do you know? And Patrick mentioned it earlier, is what do you know about being a managing director? So with the rising leadership demand, let's get them into coaching so when they step into the positions, they are ready for it. We need more resilient cultures, and that coaching builds resilience. Coaching is a differentiator between the best company to work for and a company to work for. Where would you like your company to be? In closing, to thrive in the future of work where we are now, organizations must, one, build coaching cultures. Two, train leaders in coaching skills. Three, provide equitable access to coaching for all their staff. Four, integrate coaching not as a standalone thing, but integrate it into your strategy. Use coaching to strengthen your culture. And once you've done that, as organizations, remember what Marshall Goldsmith says, what brought you here won't take you there. What brought you here today, organizations, we need you to go further. So my invitation is, as ICF, we do provide a home, not just for individual coaches, but for companies and organizations that would like to see their internal coaches and the coach leaders also thrive further. Thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation and the time, Joanne, and congratulations once again.